Right, so what we've got is a bit of 1/2 inch ply. I actually scrounge this from work because it's packaging material and it only ends up in the skip, so I asked if I could scrounge some, and they said I could help myself. Now, because I commute to work on a motorcycle, obviously I can't bring home a large sheet of it, so I sort of roughly cut this to size. Now, this particular size here I've cut this at is based on my two previous dioramas, but I want to make this a little bit narrower, so I'm going to have to trim this down to width. When I've done that, I should be nailing and gluing the surrounds to the base, and then I shall be cutting this bit of 1/2 inch polystyrene to actually sit inside it. So that's my plan of action. So I'm going to show you some clips of me doing that, and then I'll be back to chat about the actual landscape. So I'll see you then. Right, so this is what I've done. I've measured the centre of the base. I've laid a tank on there. I've decided to lay it at an angle to give it some sort of perspective. I thought it'd be look better than having it parallel with the base. I've marked the actual tracks, and what I've decided to do now is to fill in this centerpiece and these outer pieces with some extra polystyrene, which is what you've just seen me cut. The centerpiece I've actually ran down, that didn't show you that, but I've actually ran that down the bandsaw to take a lot of the thickness out of that, because that's going to go on there, this one here in there, and that like so. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to after this is all dried, I'm going to attack this with a I normally use a wood chisel actually, but anything will do. I'm just going to take the edges off this polystyrene, landscape a bit of this, get rid of the flatness on it, so I shall probably attack it with a chisel with that, and hopefully then we will have the natural damage to the landscape caused by the tanks. Now at the moment it's looking quite deep, but once the plaster of Paris is poured in and this lot's been profiled down, I think it would be probably about the right depth. So what I've got to do now is glue those bits of polystyrene in there and let them dry, so that I can sort of go to town in sort of profiling the landscape. So I'll be back when that's done, so I'll see you then. Right, so I've attacked it with my wood chisel. I've taken off all the sharp edges, as you can see, and I've scraped up all the flat surfaces. Made a point of making it uneven. Now I'm pretty happy with the way that these tracks have turned out. I think they're probably about the right depth actually. By the time the plaster of Paris is poured in, I think they'll be alright. So I'm happy with that. Now plaster of Paris, that's the next job. So I'm going to set my camera up and you can watch me mix that up and pour it in. And then I'll see you in the next clip. So see you in a minute. Right, so I've mixed up 250 grams of plaster of Paris and I've got 200 millilitres of water in there. I've added a little dash of soap liquid because I find that breaks down the surface tension, and I think it does help it when you apply it. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to gradually pour this into the water. I'm not going to dump it in straight away, and I'm not going to start stirring it, because as soon as I start stirring it, it will start to react, and I want as much time as I possibly can to use this. So I'm just going to gradually feed it into that water, and then once I've emptied this, I'll give it a very light stir, and then I'll wait for it to thicken up before I apply it in here. So that's the process, so away we go. Right, this has been trimmed with a jigsaw, so now the actual sides of the actual base is now level with the landscape. What I'm going to have to do with this is give it a lick of paint. It isn't quite dry yet. I could do with leaving it overnight, but I'm going to give it a lick of paint. I'm going to paint the actual wooden base as well, and the surround to go with it. This is porous, so giving it a lick of paint does help gluing your media on and your grass, etc. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to leave it overnight, and I shall come back tomorrow, and I'll show you how I go about generating my sort of media that I put down for me landscaping, because everything I use apart from the grass I've actually sourced from my garden. So I'll have a chat with you about that in the next clip. So I'm going to get on and paint this. Right, I'm just going to go through quickly with you regarding this. Now I've harvested this material from my garden actually. Now what I do with this is that I grab a handful of gravel and a handful of mud, and I've made this homemade sieve. I've got a 5mm hose one end and 3 the other, and I put the whole lot in here with the lid on, and I put it through the 5mm end first. I'll shake it into another container. What's left in there is too big, so I dispose of that. So that leaves me with what you see there, if you can imagine that all mixed together. I then have to filter this out, so that's 3mm. So I then put all of it into the container again, and I put it through the 3mm end of the container. That leaves me with that to put into a pot, and it leaves me with this. Now to filter that, I'm going to have to use a tea strainer. So I'll put that through a tea strainer. This here is what's left in the strainer, so I'll put that in a pot, and obviously what's gone through the sieve is the mud. So that's how I go about sort of harvesting stuff from my garden. It sounds a bit time consuming, but I assure you it's not very long at all. I did want to show you the process right from start to end, but the ground's so wet out there, it's an impossibility to filter that when it's wet. So that's all I've used is good old takeaway pot, just to break it down. I've got a 50-50 mix of PVA and water, and I've got standard PVA. Right, well, I'm going to start laying some of this stuff down in the tracks. The grass, as I've probably explained before, is something I buy. That's going to have to be glued on, but that will be done after the actual track has been sort of dealt with. So I'm going to go off camera now and lay some of this down with some glue, and then I'll be back. Right, so I've laid some neat PVA down first, and then I've laid this size down first, just to build up the tracks a little bit. I'm finding that they're a little bit too deep, so I'm just using this to build it up. The next stage I'm going to have to do is to add the mud on top. So that's my next process. Right, I'm just going to elaborate on what I've done. I've laid some neat PVA glue down. I followed that with a 3mm media. I then laid some more neat PVA down on top of the 3mm media, and then I followed it through with the mud. Now the mud has been sprayed with a 50-50 PVA mix of water and a little drop of soap liquid to help it sort of break down the surface tension. Now this is now going to be left overnight before I go any further with it. So I think what I might do is put this in the airing cupboard, and that might just accelerate the drying time of it. So I'll be back tomorrow to sort of start doing the actual grass part of it. So I'll see you then. Right, so I've left this overnight in the airing cupboard, and it's gone off. It's really good. So my next stage now is to introduce some grass. Now I bought this starter kit. Ideally you need a static grass applicator to do a proper job of it, but I'm not prepared to spend the sort of money that they want for one. I have come across an idea once of buying an actual balloon and rubbing it on my sleeve and hovering that over the grass to see if it would create like a static effect and lift the grass. But I never seem to have a balloon ready to give that a try. I don't know if anybody else out there has tried something similar, but one day I'll have a balloon and I can give it a go. In the meantime, what I'm going to have to do here is lay some neat PVA down on the surfaces here. Using a brush, I'll lay that down with a brush, and then I'll just sprinkle some grass over the three surfaces here. I've obviously got to do it so that it sort of blends in. I don't think I should be using anything too bright. I want to try and represent a bit of a muddy effect, so I might be using a dark green and a bit of brown amongst it. So that's my plan of action. So I'm going to go off camera, lay some PVA down, sprinkle some stuff on, and then I'll be back. Hello and welcome back. Now unfortunately I've lost footage of the second part where I was going to show you the grass being laid down. I decided to sort of trial my new camera out so that when I play this back I could see if there's a difference between my old camera and this camera, and I don't know what's happened, but I had 3 files on this new camera and only 2 extracted, and those are the clips that you previously seen. So the third one, I have no idea why that didn't extract properly. So I've got no choice then to sort of explain to you what I've done here. I've laid some white PVA down on these 3 surfaces, neat PVA with a brush. I've sprinkled the brown grass down over, and I followed it through with some darker grass. I've been out in my garden and added that because I thought it was looking a bit plain. The centre part here, I've used a bit of a lighter shade of grass on that one, and I've added these little bits of stone here just to represent the fact that it's a bit rocky. And once that was all in position, I just blanket sprayed it with a 50-50 PVA tap water mix with some washing up liquid in it, and I doused it and I put it in my airing cupboard, and it's dried really well. There's no sign of any cracking. You got to be careful. You got to let these things dry naturally. If you try and dry them too quick, they will crack. So that's where we are with it. So I'll introduce the tank now, which is what it was designed for in the first place. Now I'm hoping to obviously use this diorama for all my 1/35 scale tanks, so you'll see this diorama every time I build one. I wanted something to use for photographic reasons. When you weather a tank like this, you don't get the full effect with it just being on a turntable. It needs to be on a diorama really to do it justice. So that's the reason why I've sort of built this. I just thought I'd go through with you about me harvesting stuff from my garden. I thought they might be of interest to you out there. It's a shame that I can't really go into detail actually showing you the grass being laid down, etc., and the mud, because I find I don't get on with that. It's like my plastic kit builds. I just cannot get on with the camera running while I'm trying to assemble something. It just doesn't work for me. So I wanted to try and sort of elaborate on this particular video, laying down the grass and that, but obviously the camera's let me down. Anyway, that's it, folks. I hope it's been of interest to you. I mean, I'd like to think I can save modelers a few bob out there. I mean, this idea of harvesting stuff from my garden in my idea, I mean, I came across it from several people out there, and the only thing that's my idea is the way I go around filtering it, really, down to the different sizes. That's sort of my idea. But yeah, that's it. So this should complement this build here, because I was going to build this diorama with along with this tank, but I'm trying to keep me video footage down. So anyway, that's it for this year. The next video you'll see will be in the new year. I have started something at the moment, and I'm really looking forward to building that. So I hope everybody has a good Christmas and a decent new year, because this year's been bloody awful, really, isn't it? It can't get any worse next year. So anyway, I'll bid you goodbye, and I'll see you in the new year. Bye.